Welcome back to Minus 16, the tech podcast where we also love to talk about the business of YouTube and also remember to hit the record button. A little in joke there. This is round two. We were sitting talking for 10 minutes and yours truly didn't hit the big R button in front of him. So, lads, I'm sorry. I've wasted moments of your life that you're never going to see again.
It was the best intro that we've ever done as well. So that's all gone.
It was award-winning.
I came in from the ceiling. There was like rockets and fireworks. Like it was unbelievable. And for the audio listeners, you wouldn't miss out because obviously you don't hear that.
You had a rainbow parachute as well, which was fantastic.
Oh, man, I only got one. Oh well,
because we've been waiting to finally announce that Daniel was here, part of the team. We had all this huge. We had fire, as you say. It's all going off, and that's wasted. All you need to know is there's now three of us on Minus 16. So from now on,
three amigos.
Here we are, the three of us. Now, sorry to repeat to you two guys, but let's go back over what we just said. So if you've been following Daniel recently on Twitter, you will know that he's been away for 5 weeks, is it? In Europe. Was with Alex and I on Monday, just a few short days ago. Mine's still blown that we were at dinner and now you're back to the other side of the world. But you must be absolutely hanging, I'd have thought.
Yeah, well, I already got the times mixed up for this first pod that we were recording together. So
don't worry, I did hit record, you know.
Yeah, that's fair. I was sleeping. And then I woke up, I'm like, oh yeah, it's time. So good start. Yeah, I'm tired. I'm cooked.
Yeah. That kind of jet lag of that amount of travel and with young kids must be
it's fine. Stressful. It just makes me a bit more unhinged and it means I'll probably say some more unfiltered comments on here. So we should be right.
Spicy times ahead.
Yeah, we fit right in.
Yeah. So we had mentioned that Daniel was going to be a part of it, and this is now the first of the official episodes. Obviously, Daniel was with Alex last time or a couple of pods back, and now this is how it's going to be. Somebody up there in the Cotswolds, me down here near Windsor, and Alex over on Gold Coast.
Daniel on the Gold Coast, but yes.
Yeah, I'd love to be there.
Did I say Alex on the Gold Coast? Daniel on the Gold Coast. Yeah.
I've got my summary shirt ready for it. But.
And again, we did just mention on the bit that no one ever heard. I know there's been a couple of questions about why this pod is called Minus 16. It's all to do with the loudness units that you upload to Apple Podcasts. So I very cleverly, with my audio background, decided it would be a really good play on numbers. Minus 16 sounds nice and punchy. And then Alex came back with this, said...
Are we going to change the name now to Minus 23, which is what we do for video?
For video, bang, there you go, yeah. So, but as we've just begun to get new subs, and thank you for everyone that's been subbing recently. It feels like some really nice energy about this pod now. It's really going places. And part of the benefit of having Daniel on is we've now got sort of a foot in every camp. So we've got Mr. Samsung himself. We've got Alex, of course, that covers a lot of Samsung, but also covers Apple and other tech. And me that's got both feet in the Apple alley. So hopefully that gives us a nice broad discussion base. And we've got our conference seasons at different times of the year. There's all sorts to talk about. So there shouldn't be a dull pod, I wouldn't have thought. Plenty to chat about. Yes. So while we let Daniel have a little snooze, sit back, shut your eyes. We'll wake you up in 5. I was with Alex in the afternoon just before Daniel joined us, and I was looking at your Sony Xperia. Now, I know last weekend you put up a fantastic video where you kind of were out and about for the day with it in London, taking some lovely shots. And when I got to have a little look at it, outside of it being a phone, it just looked like I've had a brief look at your Sony cameras when I've been in your studio, and the whole interface just reminds you very much of using a Sony camera.
No, that's exactly it. I mean, I tried the Mark V, Sony Xperia I Mark V last year or earlier this year, and that wasn't even my phone. It was something that, I got sent to me by one of my lovely viewers, and that was my first reaction. I kind of fell in love with it because it reminded me of using a Sony camera. With the Mark VI, they made it, and that's what kind of my point of the video was. It made it more friendly to use, and therefore appealing to more people. But if you kind of one click away from it going back to what they call Pro mode now, which takes you back to that Sony camera experience. I was laughing at it earlier, and I don't know if this is going to work now. But I found this in the box, which is a ring.
We'll just leave it as a ring. No preface to it, just a ring.
I tried. It's not. It doesn't work. Too roomy. Too roomy.
That's better than the first take. I like it.
The point is, forgetting the ring, when you pick it up, it's got the shutter button, the physical shutter button, which I think Apple are
I think it's maybe
rumored to
2016.
bring
Yeah.
in, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, you've seen it before. It is there, and it does feel it's got the half press, just like a camera to focus, and then the press to take a photo. So when you pick it up and when you look at the menu, your mindset, at least for me, and some of my comments are kind of resonating as well, is you get into the mindset of taking a photo or a video. You know, you are in that camera phone mindset rather than a smartphone, and it's geared up towards that.
And quality-wise, then obviously that's the real rub. Have you I mean, compared, obviously you used the top three flags, haven't you? You've used the iPhone 15 Pro and the S24 Ultra as well, and the S24, because I know you're quite keen about that as well.
Yeah.
So if we look at sort of picture and video quality, how have you found they compare?
I'd say, depending on the situation. I mean, for video, I 100% prefer the Sony Xperia over both the iPhone and the S24 Ultra. This is 4K 60. There's something about it. It's not sharp, as sharp as the S24 Ultra, and some people don't like that, especially when you use the zoom lens on the Sony. It does go soft. I mean, especially the 7.1.
Soft and rings. What's happening here?
Yeah. He's all over this, isn't he? We've got a live one here, Alex. We've got a live one.
Told you,
We've got to put him through training camp, you know.
So you've got that very soft focus, I should say, and I just don't like the fact that people expect it to be like, you know, always too sharp. Personally, I quite like the fact. I mean, I was doing. We'll see if we can add some B-roll. We won't promise anything, but if not, we'll put a link to my video anyway.
Oh, but yeah,
which will
sure.
show some of those shots, because they are very, they're very different from a video perspective. But what surprised me was there's two things. One is front-facing video, which I never use. I hate front-facing selfie videos. The quality on this is like superb, almost on par with the 4K 60, the main camera on the iPhone. And the other thing that surprised me in a bad way is the portrait shots in some situations where you've got really bright background. I think both the Xperia and the S24 Ultra, if you just get someone to blow, which is what I did, it's like just take a point and shoot portrait shot, which is called bokeh mode on the Xperia. It blows out the background every single time, unless you know what you're doing and you go into the settings and you kind of touch focus or adjust the exposure, you can fix it. But if you just get someone to point and shoot, my experience has always been, even the S24 Plus, this is the weird thing. I reviewed the S24 Plus recently. That does a better job out of all of them in that situation.
Have you found that, Daniel?
Yeah, when I reviewed the S24 Plus as well, I found that the Exynos chip in particular, Samsung did different processing to the Snapdragon.
Is it the same chip around the world? So it might be an odd question. That's right. So different regions have got different chips.
So most of the world for the Plus and the base model S24 got Exynos. The US got Snapdragon only across the board. The thing with the Exynos is that Samsung's processing with that, they favor more dramatic clouds. So the contrast and the HDR is much more dramatic versus the Ultra. It could be to do with the hardware, because the sensor of the 50 megapixel main camera is quite a bit smaller than the 200 megapixel. So it's maybe not letting in as much light, and then it's not processing as much light. That could be a part of it. But I found in comparison that, it was way harsher with dynamic range compared to what the S24 Ultra was.
Yeah, I think the sensor is bigger as well, right? So by definition, if you look at the physics of it, you were letting in more light on the Ultra. So I think, I don't know, maybe it's physics just playing a part there, but also I had to do a double take. Not that I don't trust Samsung, because they sent me the S24 Plus to try out. But I had to kind of go, they told me, I'm in the UK, so I expected it to be the Exynos, and they told me it was the Exynos. But I had to go in and actually check the chipset ID to make sure that it was Exynos, because it was too good to be true. I was like, this has got to be the Snapdragon, because in my mind, because I had that really bad experience with the S22 Ultra with Exynos, I thought this doesn't look like an Exynos. It was that good.
Yeah, so how the Exynos chips then, presumably you say that they vary around the regions of the world, but there's different chipsets, I imagine, in the, because hands up, I'm very naive about Samsung range. So the chips that are in the S24 and the S24 Ultra, S24 Plus and S24 Ultra are vastly different, I take it.
Yeah, so the Ultra uses Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 for Galaxy. Globally, that's a global thing. And then in most regions, Samsung have used their own in-house Exynos 2400.
And so they make that, because I know you explained on Monday night, there's so many divisions to Samsung, from freight to appliances, TVs. They're such a massive company. It's hard to believe, isn't it?
Construction, jet engines, it's a whole thing. But the chipset division produces the Exynos, and then the mobile division buys it from the chipset division to use in their phones. So there is some it's definitely made for the S24, but it's not made by Samsung Mobile. It's made by Samsung Semiconductor.
And you explained to us, of course, each of those companies runs their own separate profit and losses. It's all separate businesses. So they will sell to Samsung at, normal rates, blah, 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 because they're all businesses there to make profits.
Just like how Samsung display manufacture displays for the iPhone and for other manufacturers as well. Like it's that type of, that it's self-sufficient. That's the purpose of it. Both on the two Samsungs you're talking about there, and I think the Sony said the battery life on that was stunning, wasn't it? On the Sony Xperia?
On the Xperia, yes.
Yeah.
On the Xperia, it's early days. I always like to kind of reserve judgment for at least 2 weeks before I talk about any battery. But yeah, spoiler alert, is the best battery I've ever seen on any smartphone I've ever tried. It's at least 2 days.
And actually good general heavy use, video, camera work, all that.
Well, on a heavy use, I would say it would go close to 2 days. It got well into the evening on the second day when I took it to London and filming 4K, 60, lots of videos, photos. It's incredible. I think, Daniel, you were saying that the S24 Ultra was meant to be that as well, right?
Yeah, the S23 Ultra definitely was meant to be, and it eventually lived up to that. The S24 Ultra, it kind of never really got pushed through because, and as we can see, it's definitely draws and uses a lot more power than.
You called me a maniac the other day because I use my brightness to the max.
Yes.
I was I paid for this stuff. I want to use it.
The fact you fact you don't use adaptive brightness just absolutely blows my mind, and my light just ran out of battery.
Is this the Samsung version of you holding it wrong now?
No, you're using it as you're entitled to. It's just psychotic. I just don't
Turned his back on you and said no.
An idiot. Yeah.
I was only mentioning battery life. I've never been one to really buy into this whole tinfoil hat kind of urban myths going on. But this week, out of the blue, particularly my watch, but also my 15 Pro Max, the battery is just dead. My watch.
Is there a new phone coming out?
Yeah. Now, I've never been part of this whole conspiracy thing. I thought that's complete balls. I wasn't going to buy into it. But this week, my watch, it's regularly, ever since I bought it, it's got me through the day, no problems at all. And then all I do is put it onto charge in the morning when I'm getting ready, and it's good for the day. Suddenly, the other day, and I don't use it much, maybe a couple of walks during the day, so it's not hyper busy, right? Suddenly, I noticed 5 o'clock, it was down to 20%, 15%. I thought, what the hell's going on? I thought maybe that's just one day. Every day this week, I'm having to charge it for a second time. So I don't, and same with the phone. Suddenly, the phone is just dipping like crazy. Late in the day, it's just boom, draining.
I have a rule of thumb. I think when it comes to iPhones, yes, when it gets close to the new iPhone, it is definitely a conspiracy. I have no facts to back this up, but in every single iPhone, this happens. The latest update before the new iPhone, I usually avoid it.
It's a killer.
And when it comes to MacBooks, and I've actually made a video about this back in the day when it was one of my first 10, 15 videos. One of them was me downgrading my MacBook, made it fast. It was the Intel, the latest i9, I think it was, before the M1. Yeah. When whatever it was, from Catalina to whatever. Yeah, that update completely killed my laptop. I was like, it was fine yesterday. What's going on? So downgrading back to the original was the right thing to do for me.
You say it was a conspiracy theory, but they actually did get caught doing it.
They did.
There was a whole class action lawsuit brought against them, and they admitted it. So it might not be a conspiracy. Yeah, it's.
I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah. They said it was to
the
save
watch is
performance.
absolutely tanking. That's why I was just looking at my wrist then. I wasn't bored looking at what time. I was actually just looking at the charge. I mean, even now, and I've left it. We're midday-ish. I took this off charge about 8, and it's already down to 70%. And I've been sitting here at the desk most of the morning. So
That's not bad, actually. Yeah.
It'll dip really, really quickly. Yes. Betas, boys, betas. I was going to try and run the iOS 18 beta, but of course, I was going to put it on my 14 Pro, realised you can't, it has to be the 15 onwards. And I just don't want to risk it because particularly, I think when I was out with you guys, I think, Alex, you mentioned the banking apps can sometimes get, and that was just, okay, it's not worth it for a few video
I never
clicks.
mentioned that, but I always do it. I haven't done it this year just simply because I'm not that interested in it. But I always do. I always put it on my main device. And
It's okay?
it's a risk, right? You are putting the kind of not official software basically into it, and developers test stuff out, and there's bugs. That's the whole point of beta, right?
Of course, yeah.
I'd
probably say
if I could, I would
do it on a.
You would do it.
Yeah.
Do Samsung release betas or they just do regular updates?
Only in certain regions. So I think it's like the US, UK, Germany, and Korea, and maybe a couple others where they actually release a program for betas. And I'd love to do it. Like, I love getting access to that stuff before anyone else and seeing what it's all about. Like, that's my bread and butter. So I'd happily take the faults and the bugs to see what it's like to use it. I wouldn't care. That's just me, though.
No, I'm tempted now. Then it was just because obviously the one big thing for me would be the banking. If I'm out and you just need to use Apple Pay and that didn't work,
Maybe do it on the iPad.
Yeah, that was the other option because of course there's nothing on there that's super critical to me. Of the iPad, I'm having the time of my life with it. Really enjoying using it. Yeah, there are a few pinch points that I kind of think are unavoidable, but having used it now for about a month, I kind of like the difference between Mac and iPad, and I like when I make the decision. Right, this is the time to go and use the iPad and it does feel more. We've now got a farting Daniel.
It's my alarm went off.
This is great. This is great podcasting.
I think that'll make the edit because it just looked like really the plane had caught up with you properly. That plain food really wasn't agreeing with you. You do look like
wasn't the worst of it. Yeah.
You do look like you're dropping by the minute. It's something we just see the top of your head.
That was my alarm at work. It was meant to wake me. Anyway, let's move on.
Yes, the iPad. I've not got too much bad to say about it. Yeah, it's different. Of course, the file management system's different. I don't know how you work around it on the Samsung tablets. Obviously in Mac, I'm used to having the Finder and all file management there, and whether you use Dropbox or whether you use iCloud, you've got a whole folder system, very easy. But it's not that hard to work out. When I was out on Monday, a few emails turned up with attachments, and it's easy enough to work out where to store them and reattach and send. I've really enjoyed the experience.
I'm sorry, man. When you say the file management is different, I think you're being very
generous.
diplomatic.
Yeah.
It's a pile of shit. It really is terrible. It's
I don't think it's shit. I really don't.
It's the worst thing I've ever used.
I was going to say...
I love the iPad, by the way, but the file management.
On the Tab S9 Ultra, there's a My Files app, and it is basically like having a file system as close to a desktop as you can get. You got folders, you got subfolders, the Files app as well. You can link your OneDrive and your Google Drive into it, so you can access directly to your cloud storage from the Files app. That is, and the same as the phone. It's the same file app as the phone. It makes it a lot easier. I had a question about the iPad. Have you felt the need yet to draw out maths equations and have it answer it for you yet? haven't had that need.
Yeah, I mentioned that in the video that went up yesterday. Last week, after WWDC, I did a sit-down kind of video. I was in the chair behind me there, and it was just like a conversation. I said, look, they make these things look great at events and in those beautiful commercials they shoot, but that's not how we lead our lives. We just don't, unfortunately. I'd love to be that creative sitting in a beautiful studio with studio monitors around me, but it's not real life. Same with the maths app. I said that I can't ever see myself using it. It's very clever, but all I need to know really is what's 20% of and put VAT tax on. That's kind of the only maths that I do on a day-to-day basis. And somebody in the comments this morning said, yeah, but students who are big iPad users, they might well use it in lectures and so on. I was like, okay, yeah, that's valid. That possibly is a good point.
They could also just use ChatGPT or whatever. Right?
Or a calculator.
Yeah.
An actual calculator. Yeah.
Okay.
And slightly veering off of tech, but I know you've just dipped your fingers in your pockets this week, Alex, and bought yourself another Sony camera, haven't you? You said
I
it'd been
did,
in your
yeah,
basket for weeks and weeks and weeks.
for over a year. Yeah. But just by the way, we were talking about betas, and
Yes.
we've got in the business of YouTube section, we're going to talk about betas again in a different subject.
Yes.
But anyway, yeah, so I got this Sony FX3, which is what I'm filming this on now. This one here is my previous one, the A7S3, which is now my second sort of angle. I love it because it's literally the same sensor. I think the same internals as well. There's some software differences. But yeah, I've been looking forward to this one for a long, long time.
So the color management is going to be exactly the same. So your A and B roll shots will
That
match.
was the beauty of it. Yeah, it's slightly cheaper than when I bought the A7S3. Of course, the A7S3 now is way cheaper than this. But yeah, it's my LUTs. I mean, at the moment, I'm not using any LUTs. It's just the natural Sony default color.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it is a straight. It actually improved my audio workflow, which is weird. I was telling Patrick this. Because it comes with this handle, which you can obviously use for B-rolling. It gives you another kind of, let me show you, kind of another point of...
Almost like a gimbal kind of thing, yeah.
Yeah, it's really good. But it also has an XLR point here for those audio aficionados.
Mm-hmm.
So you connect two XLRs in there. I don't really use it outside. I just use it to cover Wi-Fi, wireless microphone. But in here for my main videos, I connected to my Sennheiser XLR, and it recorded straight in stereo, which is exactly the same settings. I actually have this for the A7S3. It's a different looking thing, but it's the same. It's the same look. I had down the A7S3.
God, yeah.
And somehow this recorded 2 tracks of mono, and now this records in stereo. So it's a bit of an extra faff.
Mm-hmm.
With the A7S3. Anyway, this is getting boring. I'm feeling myself falling asleep now.
You got me XLR.
I'm so awake. I'm good.
Yeah, you just had an alarm go off. That's why.
That's true.
And how does the Sony Xperia color match up to your 2 Sony cameras? Is that anywhere near?
That's the one thing I miss. I mean, it's probably still there. It is very similar to the Sony default colors. But in the 1.5, they had the Video Pro something, which they said is coming back by the end of this year. But there was a mode in there called the Venice setting, which is their like cinema line. I mean, it's probably what they use like in Netflix filmings. Yeah, that color profile is incredible, and it was great to have. And they actually stretched the footage in almost like an anamorphic way. Anyway, yeah, that's not here, but it's probably coming back to the Xperia. And I'm not sure. I mean, I can still return it, but I'm now kind of
tempted.
I had a question.
Yeah, because
about the Sony. Something because Sony pulled out of the Australian market, I don't know, 5-6 years ago now, a while ago.
That's so weird.
Yeah, they kind of pulled back globally because they realized they were not really cutting it, like high spec, high expensive devices, and no one was really, the market share was really low. So they kind of niched down to what you've got. But one thing I've been monitoring with Sony is that they were very heavily, you can do whatever you want in the camera. All the settings are there, but the camera app was a bit confusing. I've heard they've simplified it. Have they simplified it yet? Yeah. Like to make it a bit more point and shoot friendly? Because I know that's what MKBHD said stuff about that.
Absolutely. It's almost like they listened to his video, because I think he's about the Mark V, because it was exactly that sort of thing. He said, it's a niche phone and people don't really like that. They did have 3 different camera apps with the Mark V. It's just too much. Even for me, it was like, where do I go, right? Now it's one camera app, and if you want to go to that specialist looking, Sony looking menu system, that's in the pro mode, and you can have a full day of enjoying that Sony experience there. But for the regular point and shoot person, yeah, it's all there. And I like how even things like macro photography, they took it to a level that I've never seen before. I mean, we were showing that in the restaurant the other day. But there's a very nice slider that gets you, I think it's 4 centimeters, so quite close to your subject. And I mean, I'm a noob, right? I'm not a photographer. So I've seen some results online of what people are actually doing with this, and it's just insanely good. Because it's using the 120 mil or 100, it's using 120 mil, even though it can go to a equivalent 170 mil. But it's using that as a macro lens, and it's just really, really good.
The thing I've always found difficult with Sony phones is whilst their camera and their hardware is always a step above, actually functioning as a phone is kind of what lets it down. Like its operating system and its feature set, it ends up being too, I don't know what the word is. It just seemed almost like it was hard to use, like not fun to use. I don't know. They removed
a few. Yeah, they had quite a lot. Not a lot. They had about 8 bloatware sort of apps in the previous one. This one now accounts at 5, and you can just simply not select them if you don't want to. And they made the OS as vanilla as possible. It looks almost, the first thing I noticed was even the haptics reminds me of the Pixel 8 Pro that I was reviewing earlier this year. I think they're kind of saying, let's, for now anyway, leave it as vanilla as possible. And it reminds me of the Pixel, which is to say, it's just Android as close to the main Android OS.
The Android OS and Pixel is very similar to what people would experience on the Sony then.
Yeah.
Very similar look and feel.
I added a few things. I changed the icons and I added a few customizations with a different launcher. But if you just use it vanilla as it comes out, it looks and feels, even the menus and everything, very similar to Pixel.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't get a chance to actually look at the phone itself. Have you used one, Daniel?
No, in Australia we had it. It was years ago, and I worked at Samsung then, so I wasn't really into using competitors' phones full time. But I would check it out in the shops a lot, and I always never quite grasped what their ambition was with their operating system. I never quite understood who they were targeting. Like the camera, obviously they were targeting enthusiasts, but the phone itself, like someone who's picking up an iPhone or an S22, they're likely just to want a phone to just be a phone. They're not really into the bells and whistles of the camera, the telemacro stuff. And I found the operating system didn't quite hit the mark. And I don't know if that's changed because I haven't used it, but it sounds like it's potentially heading in a better direction.
It's just yes and no. I honestly would like for them to just create their own, and almost like what Samsung did and take One UI. I mean, it's still Android, right? But it takes Android to a new level that is Sony looking and feeling. But I think for now it's a safe bet to stick with, kind of stock Android almost. But you made a good point about the market and because in my Mark 1 Xperia 1 Mark V5 was
sucks.
The point I made there was it's horrible, isn't it? The Mark V.
It's same with their headphones, isn't it? Their XM whatever their headphone name is. Yeah,
terrible. The point I made in the Mark V video was that yes, it's a great phone even for people who think it's a niche phone and it's a photographer's backup camera or whatever. It's still not available everywhere, so those people in my Brazilian channel coming over and saying, it's a shame they don't sell it here. And now with Mark VI, and I'm not sure if this is true, but I'm hearing a lot of they can't get it in the US either, even though I checked on Amazon and you can buy it there. But Sony don't officially sell it in America now, which is to me insane, right? Because it's the biggest tech market, right? So I don't know. I think they need to definitely, if indeed they want to, sell more of it, they need to work on that distribution.
I think it comes down to their want, right? Like if they want to enter the market back and sort of really try and make a play again, then they'd have to try and broaden it out. But it's like other manufacturers as well. Like it's hard to sell phones on a global scale. Global sort of retail chain is very difficult to actually set up. And some brands just cannot achieve it and sustain it. So then you got to hand it to
LG is an example, right?
Exactly. Like they tried and they put everything into it and there just wasn't enough market for them. So you got to hand it to like Samsung and Apple in particular, who have managed to cut through and create that global chain. And then it's about a balance. It's like, how do you balance the features? And Sony have obviously just decided to niche it down and go after a certain segment that other brands just aren't really catering for.
Sure.
And just before we begin to talk business of the YouTube, I finally pulled the trigger this week and bought Final Cut Pro. I've been using the 90-day trial, and the only thing I edit now in Premiere is our podcast. That's still, for some reason, to me, easier in Premiere. But everything else for the last 3 months, which is crazy, I think 3 months has passed, has been done in Final Cut. And the very day that I bought it, there was a big update come down. I was sitting watching videos about it last night. New color management file systems that were there. And ways of matching colour are meant to be better as well. I think there's a few audio inputs they've changed as well. But yeah, overall, this Switch, they still both do a good job. But I've enjoyed using Final Cut, and I'm going to be editing my main videos in Final Cut from here on in. And also, I'm going to try working on the iPad with Final Cut. So not obviously full time, but to see how far you can go with it. Yeah,
in my experience with the iPad, if you're inexperienced, if you're editing videos like we are every week, almost every day really, the iPad is almost like an additional tool at the moment. It feels like a nice thing to have, to add those handwritten notes on top of your footage. I like doing that every now and then, but I wouldn't edit an entire video on the iPad. I mean, I would probably go out of my way to sell the iPad, get a MacBook Air and edit on that instead. Also, it's not practical.
The Final Cut camera app is now available. That was the app they showed at the conference, where you can link it to Final Cut and do the multicam and direct it from the iPad. So my theory is that I'm going to make a video using the 15 Pro Max, the 14 Pro onto the iPad in Final Cut and try using.
Yeah, I reckon. Yeah, I think if you're kind of young creator, you haven't really, delved into plugins and external hard drives and all this stuff, I think that's actually quite good, right? If you're using your smartphones to record, or an iPad even, then it's brilliant to use that. But I think for people who are already embedded, have probably either a PC or a Mac to edit their videos, the iPad is not really capable to handle that, to replace that.
No, I mean, it is. I'd say I haven't got good knowledge. I've really only skimmed so far, but I need to spend some time trying to do a basic edit, maybe a short or something in it, and see how that goes. But even then, I can't use plugins. I can't put a call to action banner on it because, of course, there's no. I know there's a few effects
coming soon. It's coming over 18 months now.
With the Final Cut iPad app, how much time does it take you to then take the file that you're editing on your Mac and transfer it to the iPad to do the handwritten stuff, and then have to export it back? Like, does that add extra time to your workful and sort of reduce efficiencies? Is it worth that extra thing? Yeah, okay.
Now you can, in this new release, you can edit onto an external and use it both ways. Because I know, Alex, last year you were saying the biggest weakness of it was that it was just a one-way traffic.
It could only go one way. Yeah. So if you can go both ways, it's actually fast, right? Because it's Thunderbolt, and if you're using
it's a Thunderbolt 4,
an SSD, then it's actually going to be fast. Or actually, don't transfer it at all. You just use the same.
Edit off the
If
external.
that is working, then my use case is actually wider, and I want to try that, because I'd love to get the edit to a point where, okay, it's 10 p.m. or 9 p.m. or whatever. I don't want to, finish in the studio. I can go home, sit on the couch, and just do some light editing then on the iPad using the same storage. If I can do that without having to transfer files around, then then
just go back to Mac, put the plugins on, put the final effects on, and so on. Yeah, that'd be the way to go. Yeah. So that's if you're a Final Cut. Actually, I mean, obviously, I just came into it on the day it happened. What's surprising because I was on the trial version of Final Cut, and then when I installed the bought version, a lot of the
you lose all your settings.
Yeah. So that's one thing that's much better with Premiere, that you don't get that issue. So I think there's a way of backing up. I think before you install the,
you can. I think you can customize this, like your keyboard shortcuts and everything, save that to the iCloud. I think I've got that now, but you do lose still any of your effects. That's all. You have to reconfigure them all.
I had some adjustment layers saved in there and things like that, and a few call to action banners. The motion VFX stuff, that was fine, because obviously that's all through their their portal. That was good, but there were a few little nags that took me a little bit longer to edit this week than normal. But yeah, so if you are a Final Cut user, it is now a new version available. We've got something juicy to talk about with YouTube, which we're going to get into in a minute. It's a story that Alex has picked up on, but something I just mentioned to Alex before we got going. And Daniel, I don't know if you had a chance to look at the screenshots on our group chat. My YouTube now looks very different. The chat is all off to the left-hand side. And it's really confused me over when I was just looking to comments and likes. And
yeah, that is weird.
I mean, I generally look at YouTube on Chrome, but I don't know how your YouTube is viewing, if it's anything similar to that or not.
I haven't, because I'm a YouTube on the phone guy, so I'm never really checking YouTube on the laptop and the tablet. So I've never seen it like that before.
No, if anyone else has spotted that, let me know, because I've done nothing different. It's, yes, it's the new version of Chrome, but I don't think it's a Chrome thing. It looks more like a YouTube thing to me. And yes, I've got an extension running, but I don't think it's that either. So
no, it definitely doesn't look like that to me.
So anyway, you picked up on quite a hot story, Alex, which hand it over to you.
Yeah, it's not that hot now, but I think it's just a bit of, I mean, I called, if I was to title this segment, I would probably say it's kind of double standards in the tech world, in the tech YouTube world. And look, we're all learning this stuff, right? I don't sit here and pretend that I know everything and I'm better than anyone. It's just stuff that it's affecting me either directly or indirectly. And I thought it was worth a conversation. Because recently, and I think we actually mentioned it here, Insta360 was a brand that got in a bit of a situation, right? Telling YouTubers to not mention that they were sponsoring the video. Big mistake. They came out and apologized to some people, but still, got cooked quite bad on YouTube. I think the first video I saw, I don't know if it was the first that created it, but it was a chap called iPhone Do. Fantastic. Farouk is brilliant. But he did a video saying, I'm not working with Insta360 anymore because they did this, which is fair. And I think, ethics is something that, I think we all put ahead of everything, right? At the end of the day, you're trying to convey a message to your audience and they put trust in what you're saying. So working with brands that you trust is really important. But then quite a few others followed up. I mean, there's at least 3 other creators that went out and said, yep, I'm not working with them anymore because they did this. But then I started to hear, and this is not officially, so I can't share the details of who I'm hearing this stuff from, but they're definitely huge creators out there. Some I received direct message from, some through our website, kind of WhatsApp chats. That basically is when people are working with Apple, they have some rules to follow, right? And probably not fair to compare that with what Insta360 did. It's a different thing, but it's not that different in my opinion, right? Because they're telling creators effectively to say or not to say certain things in their videos. So one example recently, we were talking about beta software and iOS 18 and iPadOS 18. So some creators who either worked with them before or are currently working with Apple and right now and received the new iPads ahead of time or whatnot, have been told by Apple not to share, and in some cases to delete a video that they shared that because he mentioned beta features. And I just think, okay, well, it's not as bad as saying don't mention it's a sponsored video. But in my mind, it's like, well, you're telling creators what to do and what to say. And not, if that's not bad enough, some of the creators are now not being sent anything, not being invited to events because they either reviewed competitors. So I know at least a couple that reviewed recently or switched to S24 Ultra and didn't get an invite that they used to get or didn't get the freebies that they used to get. So the question I've got is, is that, are people just scared of Apple? And the other question is that unethical or is that okay because it's Apple? What do you guys think?
Well, I mean, you're closer to, honestly, you've got very close ties to Samsung, so you're probably in a good position to definitely dance around how, if you were
call me as a character witness for the for the prosecution.
You've probably seen some stuff as well.
Well, you've seen it both ways, haven't you? Because of course you've been in the corporate world, you've worked within Samsung's walls,
Yep.
and now you're your own boss, your own person talking about Samsung. So it very much directly affects you.
Yeah, I think for my side of the fence, for me, obviously I've niched down into the Samsung thing, so like there's no real danger of me going to cover something else. But I think I know from my own personal experience is that even if I did start to cover the other side of the fence, I wouldn't be persecuted or prosecuted for doing so. I think because I still give good coverage and not promote it, but I definitely am a spruik how good I think they are and how good I think other people can find it. I think they would see that still as a positive for their brand, and they wouldn't negative me for using something else. I know that for a fact, for sure. There's not this big stigma of, oh, you need to say this careful narrative versus what I've heard. And like you said, I've seen some things and been around some things and seen how practice works that I would 100% believe what Alex has said without even having to see.
I've seen some emails.
Without even having for me to see the emails, I would be like, yeah, that's bang on character.
So both of you, of course, have received product directly from Samsung, haven't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Does that come with any kind of...
Not directly.
Yeah, yours came...
through an agency from me, but yeah.
So do they put any kind of restrictions on you at all? Or are you allowed to make complete free reign? If you want to say the battery absolutely tanks, that's yours to say. If that's your experience.
Yeah. There's absolutely nothing.
In my case, I can't...
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's slightly different. The engagement is different, right? I think, Daniel, you're probably getting like someone from Samsung directly to...
I got both. I got both sides of the coin. I got a device coming straight from Samsung, but then I also received a 2-week loan review unit from the PR agency, which is fine. There's no restrictions on sort of what to say.
Yeah, it's a tricky balance to find. Right? I always found it because when you started the channel, even like my first few videos, I always made a joke about, one day, who knows, right? And the day has come this year for me. It's like I actually received something from Samsung directly or indirectly. But I've always mentioned, right, I would find it really difficult, and we've said it here before, right? I find it really difficult to actually, would I be limited in what I say at the risk of losing that relationship? And I feel comfortable because, in my case, I wasn't even obliged to do a video. I asked for the device. I signed, some paperwork that says I will return the device. But there was nothing in there that said you must do a video or you must mention this in the video. No script, no talking points. I made the video out of my own, I wanted to make the video. And I didn't make a video about the S24 that they did send. And I'm returning both devices. So it's like, it's in my situation, in this one scenario, in this one first engagement, I felt no need to be careful or to kind of limit what I was saying. I raised good and bad points like I would have done in any video.
I mean, it's weird.
Apple is different, right? Apple, if Apple's invited me to an event or whatever, I'll gladly say yes. But
exactly, I'd love to sit here, hand on heart, and say I would be.
You're probably
honest.
the first and last.
Yeah, I mean, I would want that relationship to grow, and you feel you got your foot in the door. And if you're certainly on the embargo list, you can get videos out early. I'd really love to say no. I'd still be honest, but then it comes down to that whole business thing. You're working, one of the 2, possibly 3 biggest brands going. I'd love.
And if I got that email, I'd find it really difficult not to respond and tell them to bugger off. And so, like, you can't tell me what to do. It's my channel. And that's what I'm saying. It'd probably be the first and last time I work with them because I would not. I mean, my audience would see straight through it.
There was
1 minute. I'm saying
John Redinger, who's a 1 million plus sub YouTube channel. He did a video a couple of years ago how he got blacklisted by Apple. And it was very similar in the sense of he got sent requests to remove a video because he made a video about a problem of an iPhone that he purchased. He bought it himself with his own money, and he got asked to remove it. And he's like, "Well, I'm not removing it."
Well,
and then he's basically been blacklisted from Apple events and seed devices and review units ever since. And when I look at MKBHD, Marquez, he just has had a sit down with Tim Cook. And, you know, his Apple content gets the most views on his channel by a distance. So him interviewing Tim Cook, big deal. He asked me about the Magic Mouse. Didn't press him on it. He just said, yeah, what do you tell me about the Magic Mouse? Tim Cook talks about how ergonomic it is and how great and comfortable it is to use. And Marquez just sat there. And like, if this was a journalist interviewing a CEO, and like, you'd be like, you'd follow up, right? And
if
you'd
that was
press
Oppo or a different brand, a smaller brand,
but
right?
you know that he's like thinking in his head, this relationship needs to be balanced. It's a business. I've got employees, and I don't blame him for that. Absolutely don't blame him for that. Whereas there are people who be like, Apple shield. I'm like, nah. You got to sometimes at that level, at that importance.
It's a business. Yeah.
The other side of the coin, and I'm not kind of trying to defend Marquez here, but I did think about this a little bit, and I thought he wouldn't have asked that question, right? I think he asked the question in a nice way to say to my audience,
for his audience, 100%.
Look, yeah. So it's like, I've asked, but he would be absolutely better to me from his like ethics perspective. And I'm not telling you how he should behave, whatever, but I would have done something like just look to the camera and go like that, just not say anything, but just like
he could have even edited it in afterwards. He could have gone in and edited that in afterwards.
So one of the examples, because that's a good point about John Rettinger, because one of the examples I just saw recently was exactly the same situation. The creator, after the iPhone and the Mac Mini, I think whatever it was, you know, as far as he knew, he was still in with Apple. He made a few videos about the S24 Ultra and how he switched to that phone recently. And then he wasn't sent an invite to WWDC, and he wasn't sent iPads previous to that. So in his head, he's like, okay, I'm out. Right? I'm not in the circle anymore. And what they did to him was exactly what he just mentioned about Daniel mentioned about John Rettinger. They pretended he was still in and said, can you remove your video? Even though, like, you haven't invited me to stuff. You haven't sent me anything.
Yeah, so I assume
I
off the
made
list.
the video off my own back. It's like, nah.
Yeah, I mean, I say I'm a long way from having to face that particular demon, but you know, we all know that we start off in YouTube because it's a passion and a hobby. But then if you're lucky, it begins to turn into a business, and you realize that you do have to, like in any business, you protect your relationships, you protect the assets of the business, don't you?
When you think about it, right? It's obviously a privilege, and it would be like a dream for a lot of creators, including myself, to be like in that list, right, of getting stuff first and whatever. But I would find it impossible. I would find it hard, but I would also find it impossible not to continue doing, because, you know, what got you to that list is how you behaved, right? So I probably never will get in that list. But I think to change it, it would be just, you shoot yourself in the foot. But, you know, everyone's different, and maybe people can pivot and say, actually, I'm now fully embedded in this brand, and I think it doesn't have to be Apple, right? It can be that. I think you've just got to
be balanced. Like, there's some creators that I've seen that I'm not going to name them, but they lean heavily into the negative aspect of talking about technology, where they just everything's a rant, everything's angry, everything's awful, and this is a scam, and don't buy this, and you get over that stuff really quickly. People are looking for fair and balanced, and they want to know either way whether this product's for them or not for them, and to weigh everything up. And as long as you're balanced towards a brand, they can't hold it against you. If you just do something for salacious headlines and clickbait, then I feel like they do have some sort of say to be like, hey, you aren't really being fair, but I still don't think they should blacklist you or ask you to take stuff down. It's your content at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a couple there's a couple of creators I've sort of alluded to before, and clearly I'm not going to mention their names. A couple when I was beginning to watch a lot of tech YouTube and a lot of Apple YouTube. There's a couple of creators now that I just will not watch because, and they're huge, that all they say is gush and glow about Apple and never mention as anything negative. And we all know there are certain negative things, whether it is battery life or whether it is, you know.
No one's perfect, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But you watch their video, it's like, it's just too much. You know, I'm not saying I know everything about YouTube, but I'm well aware they've got bills to pay. I'm well aware of that relationship they're building. But please, you're a big enough creator, you could at least retain some integrity and be honest enough with to say, it's a great phone, it's probably for you, but just watch out for this, that, or the other. You know, that's what I'm asking for, nothing more than that.
Yeah, and just kind of a final point, and I think this is just how I do it, and I'm not suggesting that we all should do the same thing. But if I find a problem, even if it's a small brand, I don't care who it is, I will always give the brand the opportunity. I think I did that with SanDisk recently, or which is Western Digital, but I did with other smaller brands as well. So look, I found this problem, and I've reproduced this several times. It's definitely an issue. Some viewers are saying as well, do you have anything to say? Obviously, if I get crickets, then it goes in the video. And I said, I tried to reach out. I would do the same. I mean, if it was, I mean, even with the Xperia, it's like, I can't just sit and say, I love the phone, but it's not perfect. There's always something that's, this could be better. Or
I think if you bought it with your own money,
like you said,
you have absolutely every right to say what you want. If it's been provided to you and there is a problem and you have a contact that you can get in touch with, then use that to sort of get information to then pass it on to the viewer.
Exactly. So I found this. Exactly. Are you doing something about it? Because obviously you're going to mention it whether they like it or not, right? It's just like, it's your job in a way.
And the NDAs that both you've signed, I've known about various devices in the past. In those NDAs, that is purely that you're not allowed to mention the events you're going to, the devices you're getting.
Just a time.
It's an embargo.
Yeah,
so it's nothing
just before a time.
It's an embargo for information
So there's nothing
after you've signed it.
Right, so there's nothing to do with what you're allowed to say about the device once you've got it. It's literally, you can't talk openly about it.
In my experience, the smaller, the bigger the brand, the less strings they have, it seems. That's my experience. The smaller the brand, the more crap they ask you to say and not say. It's like they send you briefs and whatever. It's like, I like to look at the brief and go, right, like the Herman Miller chair that I've reviewed recently. Yeah, they send a brief. But I like the data points in there, the actual factual things that you can mention, the specs and, the weight and whatever it is, but not exactly what you should say and how you should say it. That's
important, yeah.
That's like, you become a puppet at that point.
And I hadn't mentioned it on our group chat, but I'm now with you boys. After this podcast, I've got to sign my first contract.
Yay! We need fireworks.
We used it before.
So I've now got three videos confirmed. I've got 3 sponsored videos coming up between now and September with case manufacturers. And yes, I've got to go and sign my first contract with them, one of them after this. So, and products on the way to me as well. So we've talked plans, we've talked schedules. So thank you to all your help. It's been immeasurable how to approach and what to say to them, the way to approach it. Also, I now kind of know what my market value is for where I'm at currently with the channel. And it's just a learning process. But, it's that first time it actually feels like a small business is starting now. And it just feels
great.
Really,
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned it before, and I don't actually have any affiliation with him. But yeah, if you are in the same situation looking for sponsors, a good guy to follow on Twitter, and I think he's got a YouTube channel as well, is Justin Moore. Just check him out. He does sell stuff in there as well for like people who want to go on a course or whatever. But he also shares some free information that I think is really useful. They help me anyway.
And speaking of content, I think you and I both took our hats off to Dan and saying, this guy's been away for 5 weeks and has still uploaded a video every single Sunday.
How the hell did you do that?
Yeah, how?
Well, it was because I knew when I was going away, I planned weeks out in advance what I was going to make. And like when I fired up the phone to record my now lost S23 Ultra, rest in peace, I would just tack on an extra video. I just have I'd write out some points and then just talk them out to the camera. And then.
So in other words, you'd record that week's video that you're doing, say back in February or whatever. And at the same point, you'd record another video.
I did as much of that as I could. And then about 2 weeks before, I had maybe a gap of like two videos probably on each channel, Sam Mobile and Tech with Benefits. And I just batch recorded for a day, batch recorded B-roll, and then took it with me. So I edited as much as I could before and scheduled, but there was stuff I needed to do whilst I was over there. And yeah, just managed to, when the kids were either having a nap or when they went to bed, I just sat down and did my editing.
As much as I was just thinking, working off hotel Wi-Fi, trying to upload must have been kind of painful at times.
Mostly okay. The hotel in London was good. The accommodation in the Cotswolds and the Alex was fine with Wi-Fi. It wasn't until I got to Wi-Fi that needed you to sign in where the laptop just didn't like that. Which meant I had to use the hotspot from my phone, hotspotting the hotel Wi-Fi to the laptop, was like a daisy chain of hotspotting. It was pretty impressive. And and then I made it work. Now that I'm back though, like I have recorded 3 videos today in my state, state that I'm in. So I used my Fold 5 instead of S23 Ultra and just batch recorded 3 to sort of plan ahead and get myself ready. And
so did you already have content scheduled for this Sunday?
That's what I did today. And I was meant to edit it today too, but I just ran out of steam because I'm
fair
play. I think your audience will understand, right? To take a break and kind of recover from the trip, and then.
And again, I've had a video that I put up last night that's done really well, but it was interesting. We were talking about the thumbnail earlier this week, and those little tweaks clearly made a difference. But somebody said to me, "Why do you think?" And you'll know exactly what I mean when it's kind of not rocket science. It is just actually telling a story, properly telling a story. ABC, start at the beginning, take your audience with you on a journey through to the end. Remember to go back to the points you promised you talk about, deliver. And it's not rocket science, but it's damn hard to make sure to do that every single video, every single week to try and hit that quality.
I mean, it's if you go to your channel even 6 months ago and go into it now, it's easy for me because I'm kind of external. You probably don't see it, but the difference is huge. And you definitely found a rhythm, you found a style, you found something that works, right? And that's awesome. I actually envy how that works for you because I haven't found one like a thumbnail, especially on the thumbnail. It's like I like taking nice images of products.
Well, you and I actually spoke about it when we first started working on the podcast. I think last January. After we finished recording, you sort of took me aside one day and we were working remotely on desktops and you sort of said, your thumbnail, just try and get a style down. And that's been in my mind ever since then. And I've kind of found something. They're not the most exciting, but very stark and clean. Well, and
people see and go, right, that's the video. I've seen this before, right? It's like, I liked it, therefore I'm going to watch it again. And YouTube loves that the fact that whoever watched before are returning and watching it again. That's gold dust, right? That's what drives your channel.
Well, and of course, the other thing we were talking about over dinner, and I think you mentioned this, Daniel, is some of that evergreen content you've got there. It's just continually working for you. Even if the video you put up this week wasn't cracking, you know that in the background, you've got nice, continual, steady, passive revenue coming in from those great evergreens, how-to, all the camera details, blah, blah, blah.
And people watch and stay on your videos, right? You just shared with us your your retention graph, and it's just like, I've never seen anything that good in tech. I mean, even the gray area. I don't know if I'm going to share this on thing or
it's fine.
It's up to you. Okay. I'll drop it on. Yeah.
Even the gray area is way higher than I expect for a tech channel. I mean, usually it's closer to the 40%.
Looking at it now.
The point with that video that I wanted to make as well was that I usually put like defined, what's the word I'm looking for? Chapters or like timestamps. That's the one.
Yes, timestamps. Yeah.
And this one I didn't do it.
Yeah.
Because it's a 10-minute video, and in my mind, 10-minute video is like surely they've got attention span to not need them. And I had a couple of comments in there going, timestamps, man. But looking at the evidence here, the actual retention without timestamps is higher than having a video of a similar timeline with timestamps in it. So I guess
not only that, you getting sections in there, at least 3 sections where people are pausing and are rewinding and are watching it again. So it's the spikes. I think that's, you've obviously found a way in that video to link the story together, like
engaging,
and getting people to actually, and this is important, and you get them to stay on for a long time there. Yeah, it's not until the very end.
We can ask our viewers, what do they think about timestamps? Yes or no? Like if when they obviously watch YouTube themselves, like what's your preference?
The majority will say yes.
Depends on what length video though. Like, do they see it at a 10-minute and want it, or do they?
But you don't make short videos. I know most of your videos are sort of 15 to 20, aren't they? Generally, is that your kind of frame?
On 10, I would say if it's closer to 10, even up to like 11, 12, I would be very selective on the video that I put in. But above 12, I'd say yes, that would be helpful. But at the risk of, people are just going to use it as a shortcut to skip. The thing is, YouTube are doing that anyway.
It's automatic chapters,
right? If you're very good at kind of structuring your story, YouTube will pick up on those. And so that's a section about design,
especially in Google searches. If you search for a video on Google, they will automatically separate it and sort of give a breakdown of what that section's about. I noticed.
Yeah, one of my best ever videos, which was one that, you know, I should have framed it, and I might still do it, because it ranked. You know, sometimes I go as a like incognito and search for stuff. You know, use a VPN as well to say how well is my video, just to see how well your view is ranking. So, you know, you get some stats in analytics, but how is the viewer in a certain country or with a certain interest? You know, create an account that fits one of your cohorts or one of your audience profiles. I mean, I've been listening to Gary Vee, so calling people cohorts now. But it's really important to see what it was like. And one of my best videos was the S21 Ultra. I bought the brown, and I doubled down on, even early days, I was like, okay, if this works, I'm going to repeat it and do 3 or 4 videos. But one of them, I didn't put chapters on. And even back then in 21, YouTube did that, or Google search said, right, at this point, they're talking about the intro of the video. At this point is the design or whatever. So I feel like, okay, well, if it's a long video, I'll put it in anyway, because then I can control what the sections are called and help with SEO as well. I use like the product name in there.
That's exactly why I do it, yeah.
Because hopefully that will index it.
I mean, in the chapters I put in yesterday, you know, the amount of times I mentioned either iPad or M4 Pro or M4 Pro iPad, just to make sure for the SEO. I don't know, but it just sets sort of...
I don't know if it helps either, but I think if it's being shown in Google, then surely that's a search term, right?
That's the scraping, right? That's the kind of detail you'd have thought they're looking for. So, yeah. I mean, for me, I think it's more belts and braces. I just want to give myself every chance of being found and seen. So I'll just figure...
I don't use tags anymore, though. I don't know if you guys do.
Oh, are you? None at all?
No, very rare. Unless the product is like, there's a chance that people will misspell it, or they might be searching for something else.
Do you use
like
hashtags
accessories video? I probably do for like the brands, but
any hashtags on the description?
Only 3. Oh, right. At least 3, I'd say. 3 that are the kind of the likely ones, and I always look for the
search,
the videos that already have that have a hashtag, and obviously it's Apple. I'll put Apple in there. Actual tags in that section at the bottom.
I just have them translated over from the previous video. I was going to use from previous video, and they're already there. So I'm like, I'm not going to bother deleting them.
Can you do that automatically?
Yeah, if you go into when you're uploading in Studio, there's an option to reuse description and stuff from previous video and the settings, and it just all carries over.
Oh yeah. In customization, you can actually create a template.
When I upload with them.
If actually something I did recently is change my template. I actually added a subscribe button in there, and I did it first with a Genius link just to see if people would actually click on it, and they did. Even when it looks a bit dodgy, it looks like Genius subscribe or whatever. Whereas Genius, by the way, is a tool for just using as a metrics, like to kind of see how a link is performing. But I recently actually put the subscribe in the description. Subscribe to my channel for this. Here's a playlist for that, relevant to the video, of course. And it seems to be working. You know, at least in the last 2 videos, people did click on those. So I can't tell, since I've changed it back to just the YouTube, because now it looks legit like a YouTube thing. I can't tell how many people are clicking on that. But even on it was Genius.
I need to do better at that.
People were clicking.
And just there's always something else we think about, right? That's the thing. You can never sit on your laurels.
People might not ask or have the, you know, I've had comments before. People say, look, I don't normally comment on your videos because there's a language barrier, but something that you said or something that you did caught my attention and I want to say this. But that's true for links as well. People don't always comment, but they will, I mean, I see like even the shirts I wear, it's like, I never mention them, but they send me the shirts. It's like, okay, I'll put them in the video and I put it in the description because I got so many questions before, like, what is that shirt you wear? It's you know, so many people see our stuff, right? So I think it's fine. I got to be careful not to sound like a shill and sell every time, you know, just deliver something before, right? But
exactly,
if people are genuinely interested and the link is helpful, why not?
I do believe, certainly when I watch YouTube, part of it is I want to feel I'm walking into that person's living room, life, studio. And that's why I prefer over to traditional TV that we used to have. I just feel that and it's that thing, I know that, I don't know if it carry on, but for the last 5 weeks, so Daniel's about 1 o'clock UK, I know I can sit down as his new video. And there's a couple of videos that come out on Sundays, you know, and I kind of like that. You just walk into somebody's life and you feel, well, you're getting to know them. So that's probably why they're interested in the shirts and the caps. And, oh, right, yeah, because, I kind of like how he's looking or what he's wearing. And I get it. It's that whole thing. And that's hopefully the skill of YouTube, isn't it? They buy into you. And if they like you and feel they can trust you and feel that you're somebody they'd want to know, that's the kind of
good
vibe you're trying to
testament
create,
to
right?
that
Surely.
would be do a video that's solely about you and stuff you carry, like an everyday carry, a studio tour. That will kind of show you who the core audience that are interested and invested in you are. That's the sort of stuff you'll find that out very quickly from doing those sort of videos.
Absolutely, yeah. Because the big ones out there, sort of the Peter McKinnon one. We know if he does a studio tour, he's still going to get great clicks and great views on it. So, anyway, boys, I think we're just about done. Wouldn't you say?
I could go.
There was a few glitches, but it wasn't bad.
About.
We've gone global now. We are around the world. So we'll be back together in a couple of weeks' time. Do get involved. Leave us loads of comments. One of the three of us will try to get back to you as much as possible. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, a good review helps. And keep those subscriptions coming in. They really do matter.
I'd say, can we get them to comment something like something Australian, like a kangaroo?
There probably is, or
emoji?
Just
or just say Aussie, 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 oi, oi, oi on the comments. Or something.
Cricket bat.
The cricket bat's good.
Just
good
sunshine,
weather.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So we know you watched this far, and
Right, guys, we'll be back in a couple of weeks' time. Thank you so much for watching, and it's been great catching up with both of you, and see you very, very soon.
Cheers.
See you, bye.